it would blow my mind if these things were normal documents that were supposed to be shredded as they were in this case. Yo, what's up? So another week, another update for the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. So fortunately for the people who have worked at Blizzard in the past, and unfortunately for Activision Blizzard, there is an update to the lawsuit. The DFEH of California has updated their lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. So I thought we could go over that in the Axios article. That was the first one to kind of report on this. And I have watched a lot of other people's reactions. I watched Asmongold's reaction, I watched Bellular's reaction, and I watched Hoeg reaction. And I'll put those in the comments because I think it's very important to have kind of a breadth of opinions on something like this, especially when you have someone like Hoeg who is an expert in legal matters like this. So I feel like his opinion is pretty valuable for something like this, but obviously I'm going to have the best take of them all. That's why you should like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this in the future. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it here. All right. So I'm just going to read through this article. It's pretty short and I'll just talk on each point with a lot of the stuff that I think about it. So California has expanded its anti-discrimination lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, adding temporary workers to the female full-time employees of whom it is suing on behalf. The state's Department of Fair Employment and Housing also alleges the game maker is interfered with its investigation. So basically what they're saying is not just full-time employees, also temp workers and contractors are now included in this lawsuit. So before it was just people who had actually been employed by Activision Blizzard and hadn't been part of that temp position or a contractor from some other company, which apparently, according to a lot of people, specifically the videos I saw from Asmongold and Bellular, I believe they talked about the fact that a lot of these people are the worst treated out of everyone. They're the contractors and the temporary workers are treated the worst out of all of the possible people working for Activision Blizzard. So I'm glad to see that the lawsuit now includes them as well here. So that is fantastic news. That means that potentially even more damages to people can be righted in this lawsuit. And I hope that this is like all encompassing and we can get every single person who's been affected, although I know that's obviously not going to happen, but I hope it's pretty close. And I hope that people can see some actual material gain from this unfortunate situation. All right, so why it matters. While Activision Blizzard has attempted to show over the past month that is addressing issues raised in the suit, the DFEH is turning up the heat. The amended complaint was filed Monday and redefines the group, it says, was wronged by the gaming giant. So from what I understand from Hoeg's video, this kind of amendment to these lawsuits is not necessarily uncommon. So like they'll come through with new findings or like updates or like spelling errors. And I think like one other example of this is the fact that they corrected the spelling of Crosby Suite to Cosby Suite. So they fixed that and then they expanded their definitions and their inclusions here. So this kind of stuff is not uncommon and it's actually very important to the legal system here because as more and more stuff comes out and like if new findings are discovered by the DFEH or whatever, then it could be the case that many people that weren't previously understood to be part of this can now be included, and some transgressions done by the company that weren't previously included can now be included as well. So a copy reviewed of Axios specifically mentions that California protections against anti-harassment, equal pay, and other equal employment opportunity protections exist for employee and contingent or temporary workers. So it might be the case that the state of California had intended for these people to be included as well, but during the initial draft, they just worded it simply. You know, mistakes can happen, especially with something like that, and since they can be amended later, it's not like they had like 50 people like looking over it, although I'm sure that they have quite a few, but since they probably intended for this, but now they have all of these people here, so the original intention is at least upheld, or if it's not the original intention, then at least new people are brought in to be included in here who have also been, you know, marginalized by this company. Throughout the lawsuit, the word employees has been changed to workers. So this is one of those things where I was talking about the Cosby Suite being switched out for the Crosby Suite. Well, employees has been switched out for workers because this term is just more encompassing. Obviously, employee specifically refers to somebody working for the company in like a long-term role, where you could have like a temporary employee, which would hold a different connotation, and then a contractor, which would be different, but then workers include all of those. So the DFEH also says Activision Blizzard has stymied its efforts through NDAs requiring employees to speak with the company ahead of contacting the DFEH, and its involvement with WilmerHale, a law firm the game maker said will investigate misconduct issues. So basically what happened here is this company, Activision Blizzard, made it so that anybody filing their, like anybody filing through this new system that they set up, I talked about this before, but basically they had this law firm WilmerHale come in and basically give them the green light that they're doing everything they can for employees and inclusion and like HR and all that stuff. But basically what this is saying is this entire thing where they set this up with this law firm and with their own HR institution, well, they told employees that they had to talk to these people before they talked to the DFEH, and then they also made them sign NDAs. So you see how that can be really bad if you have people who are possibly going to be included in this lawsuit, and then you have them go through this system that you're saying is supposed to be for the betterment of the employees. But allegedly what is happening here is that these people are being kind of bullied in a way to sign NDAs and to have to tell their stuff to this law firm and the Activision Blizzard HR first before going to the DFEH. So one, I'm almost certain that it's illegal for you to tell your employees to talk to your like internal HR system or another law firm before going to the DFEH. Obviously, they're hoping that these people will be kind of shut up through NDAs, or that something will happen along the way where they don't feel as comfortable explaining their situation to the DFEH anymore, or possibly even so that Activision Blizzard can have a better response for when some of these accusations come out to light. It's clearly a major problem that they're like, honestly, I would just say this is bullying employees. Granted, this is true. Now, of course, it could be the case that this website's interpretation is incorrect, or that the DFEH's claims are exaggerated or kind of vague intentionally. I don't really know. Again, you should watch Hoeg Laws for that kind of opinion. But for me, I'm going to say that this is probably pretty accurate based on the readings that a normal person would have looking over that lawsuit. And if this is actually happening, then they literally are just kind of strong-arming their employees in an attempt to get ahead of the issue or silence them. And, in Bellular's video, they brought up the fact that Activision, back in the Modern Warfare 2 days, actually did some illegal stuff before in order to secure IP rights or prevent an employee to any kind of IP rights to the Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare franchise of Call of Duty. So this wouldn't be the first time that Bobby Kotick has been involved in telling some people to do illegal things, I suppose. So that could be something to worry about as well. And so when you think about it in that sense, it seems to reason that a company who's done something like this in the past will probably do it in the present, or is at least more likely to do it in the present, or at least in my mind would seem more likely to do it now, as opposed to a company that had never done those illegal things in the first place. The suit claims that this directly interferes with the DFEH's ability to investigate, prosecute, and remedy workplace discrimination and harassment violations on behalf of employees and contingent or temporary workers. Now, of course, this is basically what I was just talking about. If they're not going to the DFEH first, then there's a lot of room for them to lose their interest in, sharing their opinion, because they might be led to believe that it's the wrong opinion, or their experience is, not happening. It could be the case where the HR and this law firm are essentially gaslighting these employees and condemning them and blaming them for the blaming them for the harassment that they themselves received. But it could also be the case that Activision Blizzard is trying to get ahead of this lawsuit by doing this. And when you do that, it allows them to do what they talk about later of destroying evidence. And of course, destroying evidence is a horrendous thing to do. But if they know what to look for, it's a lot easier for them to destroy this evidence. And I believe that's probably why the DFEH has claimed that it is interfering, mostly is the bigger reason for why it's interfering with their investigation. it could be the case that employees are now kind of scared to share their experiences with the DFEH because of what Activision Blizzard has said. It alleges in part that documents related to investigations and complaints were shredded by human resource personnel in violation of what it asserts is the game company's legal obligation to retain them pending the investigation. Now, this is what I was talking about up here. So, allegedly, they were shredding documents, and some of these documents were vital to the investigation from the DFEH, and that they did so against the rules, and they did so against the law of, one, being under investigation, and two, under other California laws requiring them to keep specific documents for a certain number of years. I'm sure anybody who's worked at a job that has any kind of documents that you send through email or that you print out or whatever has read rules of retention and anything like that. So most people probably understand, like, maybe not the legal requirement, but at least like from a company policy requirement to keep documents. Now, Hoeg law did bring up that it is possible that the requirements for keeping documents was very unclear from the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. And if that were true, then it's pretty regular business. It's pretty regular that HR would be shredding documents. Like, documents could be leaving that time where they're required to be kept, or they could be for safety reasons or security reasons having shredded those documents. Of course, those are regular things that HR and anybody in a company would probably be doing, but it seems that it was suspicious enough and possibly incriminating enough for the DFEH to add this into their lawsuit. And I don't believe, and I'm not a lawyer, but I don't believe that the DFEH would ever add this into their lawsuit if they didn't think they could A, prove this, and B, that it was severely incriminating documents. So I hope that if whatever was shredded, that they can get back in some way, whether it be on like hard drives or some kind of other copy of whatever was shredded. Because if it is that incriminating, let's think about the reasons that a company would want to shred something for an illegal reason. A, it's extremely incriminating for an individual that's high up, so he can give the command to lower down people to kind of shred these things. Or B, it could be the case that the damage to the company for this document being released is greater than whatever the fine is or incrimination process is for destroying evidence. So if that's the case, then whatever was in here is probably pretty bad. And pretty bad in the case of monetary value or social standing or, public opinion, because if it's monetarily more money for them to have these things come to light than it is for them to pay the fine, they're going to do that. But also, if they think that they're going to lose more money from the damage to their reputation, then that could also be a reason that they would shred this in an illegal way. Now, of course, I don't know if they did this illegally. It's incredibly suspicious because I have to believe that the DFEH would have full understanding of what things should and shouldn't be shredded and when things should and shouldn't be shredded. And for them to add this into the lawsuit, it would blow my mind if these things were normal documents that were supposed to be shredded as they were in this case. And I believe one of the things that actually was deleted was past employee data only like 30 days or something after they had left the company, or less than 30 days, when that kind of information is supposed to be kept for at least 2 years. That's the kind of thing where, as a company, either you really fucked up or you're being incredibly shady. And I think it's the latter in this case, to be honest with you. That's my opinion, and that's how I've heard other people take this as well. I know that Asmongold has a pretty hard take on this, where he obviously believes it's intentional, as I do, but he also said this earlier when they hired this law firm that they were doing that to kind of filter employees through and get ahead of this and all that kind of stuff. But this part is the worst part, in my opinion, the fact that they are destroying documents. So for me, it's hard to imagine a company would ever be dumb enough, especially one as big as Activision Blizzard, would ever be dumb enough to destroy things that they didn't mean to. So for me, that means that this was intentional and it was bad, and they knew that the monetary cost of having these documents come to light was harsher than the fine for destroying evidence. And I think it's a very sad state of the world where a company can get away with doing this because the cost of doing it is less than the actual damage that these things coming out would be. In my opinion, if it is found that they intentionally destroyed all these documents, not only should they automatically be found guilty for all of the things that this would be incriminating for, they should also have to pay the fine on top of that. But I'm not a legal expert, so maybe that's why I'd be too harsh. I don't know. A spokesperson for Activision Blizzard told Axios that the company has complied with every proper request in support of its review, even as we had been implementing reforms to ensure our workplaces are welcoming and safe for every employee. So Hoeg Law talked about this proper request because obviously Activision Blizzard believes that some of the requests from the DFEH are either not fair or unactionable or too vague to even understand. So I don't really need to read more into this. I know a lot of people like Bellular and Asmongold did kind of read into this a little bit more. I don't think it's more than that. I think they're just kind of saying that like anything that we thought was actionable or reasonable, we did. So that's just kind of how I read that. With regards to claims that we have destroyed information by shredding documents, those claims are not true. We took appropriate steps to preserve information relevant to the DFEH investigation. Okay, I mean, obviously this is going to come out in the court case if there is one, or I guess if there's never any court case and this is all settled, then it's going to be pretty hard for most people to believe that this wasn't intentional. So this is just regular PR talk. This doesn't really mean anything at all. It like goes without saying pretty much, but of course they're gonna say it because they want to save as much face as they possibly can, especially when they're in the position to be losing as much money as some people suspect that they are losing right now. We have provided the DFEH with clear evidence that we do not have gender pay or promotion disparities. Our senior leadership is increasingly diverse, with growing numbers of women in key leadership roles across the company. Okay, this part right here, our senior leadership is increasingly diverse with growing number of women in key leadership roles across the company. Now, the representation of women in key leadership roles is obviously extremely important, but that is not what this first statement is. Okay, I want you to read these. I'm going to read these two statements again so we can spot the difference. We have provided the DFEH with clear evidence that we do not have gender pay or promotion disparities. Okay, our senior leadership is increasingly diverse with growing number of women in key leadership roles across the company. Now, you might say, but it answers this promotion disparities. Does it? Just because you have women in key leadership roles doesn't mean that women are being promoted in a responsible way within the company. One, these women could have been brought from outside the company, especially in senior leadership roles. It's not that uncommon for senior leadership roles to be brought in from outside the company for any gender. It doesn't matter, but regardless, that could have nothing to do with promotion. Second of all, promotion isn't just important at the highest level. Like lower level managers and lower level managers, higher level managers, high promotions into roles for developers, for designers, all that stuff is incredibly important as well. So this is like not even the tip of the iceberg. This is like the snowflake on top of the iceberg for what actually needs to be done within the company for this to be true. And then they also said, fuck all about this gender pay. So this response, I think, is just half-assed. And obviously, I don't think that this is true at all. Otherwise, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing would never have levied a lawsuit against the company stating that they intentionally underpaid and underpromoted women. The big picture. The change comes after stories revealed toxic conditions faced by Activision Blizzard contract workers, stories shared with Axios from ABK Workers Alliance, specifically from quality assurance and customer service departments, paint a picture of brutal overtime paired with little pay. Now, it is not that uncommon for companies to outsource or contract these positions, customer service and quality assurance, because the difficulty to do them isn't that hard. But once you have kind of a skill in these areas, it can become more valuable than having people kind of dedicated. But once you have kind of a skill in these areas, you can kind of do them for any company, and these things aren't always as needed as they are, and these things aren't always in continuous need. So it makes a lot of sense for companies to outsource or temporary hire these kind of positions, like through contractors or just temp workers in general. So I'm pretty unclear about what the allegations are. I know that there's a story here, though. I'm going to assume that they're really, really bad or pretty bad, especially since people are saying that these are the worst treated people within the company. So, and it also from like, if you're going to put yourself in a position where you would kind of exploit someone, it makes sense to exploit people who aren't within the company, because they're going to have less avenues, or they're going to know of less avenues to go to remedy any kind of bad behavior from other employees and stuff like that. And also, this brutal overtime paired with little pay is unfortunately pretty standard, but also doesn't make it okay in this situation. So I'm 100% sure that this is true, and it's pretty sad that people are forced to work in these conditions. As a contract employee, I feel there's a lot of pressure to excel, impress, and move through the ranks as fast as you can before your contract ends and you're forced to go 3 months without income or find another job. One worker said, "I take pride in what I do, but it feels like it's never enough." Right. So basically, as a contractor or freelancer or whatever, you kind of get jobs to do specific projects within a company. Or if you're a contractor, then you might work for one company and then they kind of lease you out to other companies and stuff like that. So when you have to move companies a lot and kind of learn their infrastructure and what you need to do for the job and all that stuff quickly, it can become very stressful and it's very hard work. And of course, you need to actually have some kind of high level of aptitude to do some work like this. And it's unfortunate that these employees are facing such severe consequences just for being outside the company. I mean, what else could really be said? You know, that the situation is just horrible overall. And we suffer from stress. Another worker said, "We suffer physical ailments. We are overworked and underpaid across the board." Yeah, this seems to be a pretty common theme within Activision Blizzard. Their own employees claiming to be underpaid, the women in their company now being represented by the state of California to be underpaid, underpromoted. And so it seems like even as in the industry, they underpay their people, and then they're also judging people based off gender and based off of their positions. So like people who are contractors and temp workers, and it's a horrible situation. It seems like this company, if these are true, this company appears to me to be incredibly rotten all the way to the core. And I don't know what Activision Blizzard could actually do to change anybody's opinion about this. It's in such bad taste. It's put such a bad taste in your mouth now. I even saw earlier that they're removing the Activision logo from the new Call of Duty ads. I mean, of course, like that's how bad their image has gotten, that they have to remove we have to remove their logo from their products. Like, yeah, this company is in a horrible position. But yep, that's all for the video. I do a lot of article reviews like this, so if you thought this was helpful or interesting, or you just like me in general, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so that you'll be notified whenever I upload something like this or anything else that might interest you. But yeah, that's it. Peace.